podcast where we take a deep dive into all things ammunition. I'm your host, Audrey Mayes, and today we are live at OSG Roundtable, and I'm sitting here with Skip Knowles. He is the editor-in-chief of Wildfowl Magazine and a couple others. What are the other two?
North American Elk and Predator Nation. Wildfowl is by far and away my bread and butter. That's a big subscription publication that we do. The other two are newsstand, though I love them dearly.
Yep, and you're a tried and true duck hunter, right? Like that's your heart and soul.
Absolutely. If I had to choose the one thing I couldn't live without, it's waterfowl hunting for sure.
Yeah.
It's so deep and multifaceted. It's just so fun. It's so social, and the dog work, it's so much you can do with duck hunting.
Yeah, and there's so much culture there behind the duck hunting world, and food. Ducks are great to eat.
And geese.
and geese, yes, yeah.
My season ended last year in early May in Alberta, Canada. And it ended on a bright note. We shot 300-something snow geese in 2 days. But the real big news there was that the prairie was getting soaking wet again, and it was literally on fire north of Alberta, north of Edmonton, in late April and early May, and it just started raining, which was exactly what duck hunters everywhere needed to happen.
Right. That's great.
Yeah.
And I wanted to jump into to duck loads real quick. I know that Remington, we make very good duck tails. It's what I shoot to hunt ducks. What is your preference on duck loads?
I'm really getting into the duplex load, the mixed loads, just like everyone else right now. Every manufacturer on earth is coming out with some kind of 2x4 or 3x5 blend. And in tungsten, it's often, blended number 2 or number 4 steel with number 9 tungsten. Mm-hmm. And I've been shocked at how lethal some of that stuff is. It doesn't sound like the there's even enough of it in there to do much. And it absolutely makes a difference. And something about the way they hit and pattern, it's unbelievable. And there's blended bismuth and blended steel now. And it all works really well for the most part. But you got to say hats off to Remington, because I was rummaging around in a Peoria office, the headquarters of our magazine, 10 years ago, and I found some dusty green boxes of Remington's shot shells. I think they were turkey loads. Yep. And they were a funny mix of, they had black hull bases, not brass, and they were really cool looking. And they were, 2x4s or BBs and 5s or something. Yeah. And I ended up using them on coyotes. They were absolutely murderous. But you guys were way ahead of the game compared to everyone else in terms of doing that. And some other brands have come out with some. They've discovered a science that they've learned to flip the load and put the small shot in the back, and that the small number 4 shot will draft behind the number 2s up front. And it not only creates way more pattern density, the small number 4s that would normally be lacking a lot of energy, let's say 30, 40 yards, they arrive and fill in the pattern with more energy than they would have if they were fired just as a straight load number 4. It's really cool. Yeah, the science behind that is really awesome. And you're right, a lot of people don't know that. Remington actually coined the term duplex. Oh, wow. Yeah, so any cartridge out there you see that's a blended load that calls themselves duplex, we're like, hey, thanks for the nudge. Hey, can they do that? Can they use duplex, or is it entirely proprietary? I think it was at one time. I think it was trademarked. I'm not sure if that fell off or not, but I know that we were the original. That's really cool. You guys were the original for a whole lot of things, and a lot of people started learning that steel shot was horrendously ineffective for, better part of a decade. And the engineers started figuring out the way to make it have energy is to speed it up. And people were fudging up towards 1,400, 1,500 feet per second. And Remington made the hypersonic leap to 1,700 feet per second. Yeah, those hypersonic steel loads are deadly. Not only to birds, but for me personally, they smack the crap out of them. Oh, yeah. Yeah. The phrase you're looking for, it kills at both ends. There you go, yeah. I'm glad that's a coined term. So. I got to tell you, though, I first got to go on a test run with him. It must have been 10 years ago. Took us to Kodiak Island to shoot a Remington rifle. It was 700 in Remington Ultramag. There was 300 Ultramag that had this coating. It starts with an N. I want to say I don't remember the name of the coating. But it's a remarkable bulletproof coating. We got the guns in the salt water and threw them in their cases and shipped them to the States, and they arrived and there was no rust. And a friend of mine had a plane weather view, and the muzzle brake on his rifle turned bright orange just in the time we were on shore hunting deer. Wow. Just from the salt in the air. And the other half of the trip was getting to test this new hypersonic stuff. And it was amazing how we were running some kind of gas guns and, the Versamax, yeah. And they cut the amount. I do a lot of missing, on sea ducks, like everybody.
That's fair.
Old squall with a tailwind. It's the most humbling thing you'll ever do at 50 yards, But the hypersonic, if you hit them with steel, it put them down, and we hadn't seen that with sea ducks. They're notoriously, they have 4 lungs and 2 hearts, and they're impossible to kill. But the remarkable thing was hunting on the ocean, especially when you're high on shore, you could see where your misses would splash, high, low, or behind the animal, and the distance you had to lead it cut down so much that speed, the velocity of if you missed, it was often by a lot less than you normally do.
Yeah.
And it was remarkable for that reason. And I was in hunting camp shortly after talking about it, a different sea duck hunting camp for eiders in Maine with a different brand, and they were praising. Everyone was kind of criticizing it as being a too violent load. The guns aren't engineered for it. It's not going to pattern, blah, blah, blah. But these other camp of manufacturer engineers were really into what the Remington had done. He said, nope, we tested the energy. That's what you need to do to steel to make it kill. Yep. Unfortunately, it kills both ends. But
I mean, just take it. If you want to fold them like a chair, that's what it takes.
Oh, fold them. I did my brother-in-law's all jump shooters, and I tagged along once in southeast Colorado on a hunt with them, and we snuck up to this spot. And I remember it's the first time I'd seen both wings blown entirely off of a big duck at like 25 yards, and both wings at the joint go flying into the air on this big gadwall. I was like, wow. Yeah. Those guys shot a bunch of birds with it, and weren't many cripples, but...
But it got the job done, and that's all you need. Yeah.
And a lot of manufacturers started complaining about clients using it, customers using it, because they'd get their guns back, missing a gun back with a broken part, because their guns couldn't handle it, So it was a proof test in terms of gun quality in a way.
Yeah, I mean, if it rocks your gun, you're gonna have to live with that, like keep up with it. I know that you have a ton of awesome waterfowl stories, but I know that you have really awesome public land waterfowl stories, and so I want to hear about one of those.
Oh, jeez, I know you do as well, Aubrey. We touched on that last night, I think. I've done the crazy. Cache River, White River Basin stuff, and Bayou Meto, and tried to sneak out at just insane hours before dark and going through the trees and seeing giant whirlpools. I always thought of swamps as static and not having any current. The next thing you know, your boat is slammed up against a tree. And you're trying to figure out which one you're going to hug on when it goes under, which one you're going to try and jump on, and how fast you could get your waders off. And then you get your spot, and there's the dreaded peep of the flashlight in the dark. Someone beats you there, or you finally get set up. I was with a real hunting celebrity at the time, and he was really wanting to show off his calling, which is what we were there for, is to see how he could do it and how he did it. They call it trolling for ducks. And they would just call it relentlessly, never stop. And it worked, but we had a party set up, classically 300 yards from us through the trees, bang away at our swing ducks and just completely ruin our day. It was funny, though, but it's everywhere I've been on public. Even in Colorado, at a mediocre. I'll tell everyone where to hunt. It's Pueblo Reservoir. It's terrible. You're welcome to come. If it was good, I wouldn't tell you.
Please come and try.
We call it we're team no threat when we're there because we never shoot much, but it's close to home, so we enjoy the outings. But I remember we were getting some shooting in on one case. They have a tiny little bit of flooded timber, and people just screaming and cussing at us through the trees every time we shot at birds. And we had a 15-year-old boy with us, so I really didn't appreciate that. And I started to understand how people get in fights on public land in a hurry. My buddy Mike Miller is a huge ex-Pennsylvania State wrestling champion, and these guys come walking up to us, and we bit our tongues, mind our own business, started loading our boat to leave. We never returned any profanities with them or anything. We're trying to hold the high ground. They come walking over to us at the ramp, and I'm like, oh, this is good. I need a little exercise. And they came over and apologized. Turns out they were teenage boys, and they were just really frustrated.
You were getting so heated.
Yeah, I was like, I'm going to kill these guys. They were just landlocked. They were so jealous. We had a boat, and turns out they had a real young first-time hunter with them, and they had wanted him to get shooting so bad that they were just being jerks, but they came over to apologize. I did not expect that. Yeah. We don't shoot much on public land, but it's always an adventure. Yeah. That said, I have had a lot of wildly good hunts on public land too.
I mean, it's hit or miss, and for people who have never hunted public land before, at least down in Arkansas, it's crazy. I'm talking like you're at the wildlife management area that you're going to hunt at 1 a.m. They open the gates at 2:30, 3 o'clock. So you get there at 1 to just wait in line, okay? You're waiting for them to open the gates, and then it's a dead sprint to your spot. Like
it starts out on foot, right?
Yeah, it starts out on foot. And then you run into your side-by-side. You get in your side-by-side, and you race to the water. And then once you're in the water, you jump in a boat. And then, and then the boat's like getting you to your hole. We had a buddy. He grabbed the decoys, grabbed his gun, and he was the fastest guy in there. So we knew he was going to get out of the boat first and like try to run to the spot. And he's like over knee deep in water, running through the thing, trying to climb over a levee, and eats it.
What could go wrong?
He just falls. We just like watch it happen in slow motion from a distance. And then once you get there, everything's quiet. You have to wait 4 hours in the freezing cold for the sun to come up.
Oh, yeah.
But
imagining if it's early season, what's in the blind and what's in the water out there with you.
Oh, yeah.
Colorado, everyone's campers. Even in the high country, at these big high country lakes, there's a frenzy of duck activity at the beginning of. They have strange early seasons. Mm-hmm. And even though it's way outside duck hunting culture, eastern Colorado is fantastic. It's like Kansas and the Central Flyway. But even the mountain lakes, man, the guys are sleeping out there all night.
Yeah.
Everyone's gone out there and just frozen because it's, it gets down around freezing at night.
Mm-hmm.
Just to try to be first,
Yeah, people just want that edge. And it's really competitive, but like you said, with those people apologizing to you, like at the end of the day, after the hunt, everyone's family.
It reminded me of rugby, because everyone wants to try to kill each other on the field, illegally hit each other out of bounds. Then, afterwards at the drink up, you're all best friends.
Yeah.
Especially the Aussies, but it was crazy. I cut my teeth in South Texas as a little 5 or 6 year old, a single shot 410, chasing my dad down where you're from, down on the Corpus Christi Bay in the Port Aransas area.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Port Aransas is where I also grew up duck hunting, and it was way more chill though. I feel in my experience, we kind of just got in the boat really early, went to like a public blind. And, people even wanted that blind, came in after us, and they just waved at us as we walked by, and they said good luck. And it's just complete 180 from what I experienced.
You do hear the great stories about people welcoming others to join them on the hunt and being gentlemen about it. And some great friendships forged that way. It brings up that crazy dichotomy that exists in hunting now, that they say every year our numbers are down. We had the big spike around COVID, of course. We got a bump in numbers. But generally speaking, especially as a percentage of the population, hunter numbers are sliding, big game too. Yet everywhere you go, it seems like every place is 10 times busier. And that's South Texas, Nueces River. My father was out there all the time alone in a car topper boat, shooting wild hogs, occasional big whitetail buck with his shotgun with slugs. He always had one handy, and shooting just limits of pintails. Back under the point system in those days, 10 pintails a day or something insane was legal. People say they've never really recovered from that as a species, but yeah, he almost invariably had the whole place to himself. And we tried to go back, you can never go back. We went back like 20 years later, thinking it was overlooked, muddy little nasty area too far out of the way. And there was a commercial fisherman with a net putting in at the boat ramp. There were crab pots where we had always just been so easily able to limit out on great big blue crabs. There were crab pots literally like every 100 yards, and we couldn't catch anything when we tried. And there were duck blinds everywhere, big ugly duck blinds. One guy who arrived and was trying to install a septic tank on some kind of flatbed boat to haul it out in the marsh on public land and dump it, and so to use it as a duck blind. And he was a guide. He monetized the whole area, and it was just so different.
Yeah, it's interesting how spaces like that change over time, and it's so shocking when you go back later.
And everywhere we go, we're told that hunter numbers are down, but everywhere you go, it's really hard to believe. And in terms of your personal experience, especially on public land. It seems like there's so many more people everywhere. It's confusing. I don't know what to make of it.
I know, and it's not just duck hunting, like you said. You come out to Colorado, you try to elk hunt on public land, and it's just as competitive.
I was teasing you. Southern Colorado becomes Little Texas. Yeah. Because it's a one-day drive,
Yeah. You were telling me that it becomes Northern Texas, and I was like, yeah, I'm from Texas.
But
and
then
I
you
do
told
that.
me some great stories. The success you've had getting close to big animals out there shows me you know what you're doing. But some of the Texans do too, and there's still a lot of wonderful adventure to be had in all that country.
Definitely, and like partnerships to be made and relationships to be built and stuff. So I think it's interesting to hear that the reports say that the hunter numbers are down, like you said, because I don't know. I feel like I see new hunters all the time. I'm not saying like hunters that I've never seen before. I mean people who are new to the tradition of hunting.
Yeah, I'm raising 3 of them, right? And that
Right.
keeps me so busy. My little brood, I guess 6, 7, 9, and a 12-year-old. But it's interesting. I have all these friends. They're around 40. They're younger than me, and they're all dying for me to take them hunting. They're all badass outdoorsmen. They won't quite take the initiative to go themselves. They want me to take them, and it's something I really need to do and make happen. But there's like a lot more people out there waiting to learn and wanting to learn, and they're so jealous of all the elk and venison and goose meat I have, and my kids constantly walking around with jerky. My daughter's best friend saying, "Hey, where did you guys get all this jerky? Where can you buy some?" And I'm like, "Oh, sorry, honey, that started with your mom. She had to marry a real man."
Oh my god.
Sent him home to say that. The guy's my best friend.
Yeah.
You know? But they all want to go so bad, but they won't quite do it themselves. And I feel like as a hunters, we really need to take an appreciation for just how many people like that are out there. I don't know. Maybe it's because I live in the West that there's so many more people who are aspirational, you'd call it. But
Yeah.
yeah,
I
it's
don't think
something.
so. I think it's like a United States like universal
Well,
truth.
Texas is the West, if you ask them. They're definitely not the South.
I said it once, I'll say it a million times. Texas is its own thing.
Yeah.
And someone asked me last night, is Texas the South? And I said, no, it's Texas.
I mean, is there any other state that has any slogan like "Remember the Alamo" based on an actual historic event like that?
No.
Raise their own army.
Yeah. I did want to ask you a little bit about Wildfowl, the publication. Can you tell me a little bit about what you can find inside?
Oh, we are the Hunters magazine. It's funny, I never had clarified that vision. It was something I always knew instinctively. What separated us from our we don't have a lot of competition, but our competitors are mostly based in nonprofits and conservation-based magazines. And I was on that Alberta goose hunt this year, and this old man had been in camp. He'd read about I'd written about the hunt the year before, the early May. I called it hunting the snow goose rut because the geese are starting to pair up and breed, and it's an entirely different experience than the great wonder of the natural world, which is being underneath a snow goose tornado that we all dream of. But there's another special season that comes after that, at the very end of the migration, right before they jump the trees, they call it, when they go fly as far north as they can, hit the grain fields, and they stage, and they have to feed, and they have to stay there a while to fatten up, to make the long haul over the thousands of miles of boreal forest. And it's a really unique, undersubscribed hunting opportunity. And I wrote about all that in Wildfowl. It's the kind of thing you read in the magazine. They'd light a hunter's fire, and there was this killer old man. I just wrote an editor letter about him. It's in the September issue on newsstands now, who had read the story, gone up there and hunted and gotten in the rain for 4 days. But he found out we were going to be there testing some new shotguns. He re-upped for 4 more days, and I got to spend a bunch of time with this reader. And all my friends with the gun company I was hosting must have thought we planted these guys, because they were like, what? I love all the magazines. I get all of them. There's 3 other waterfowl magazines. He goes, they're all good, and conservation's important. We all care about it. We need to care about it. But wildfowl is up here. He goes, he's raised his hand high in the air. This 79-year-old badass guy. And he said, former park ranger and still just hunts nonstop. He said that it's the Hunters magazine. He goes, we want to read about hunting and the hunting experience. And that's what you'll learn. In Wildfowl magazine, we have a column by Scott Haugen called The Playbook. It's a lot of how-to instruction, and it's by the most soul duck hunter you'll ever meet. He shares firsthand experiences combined with technique. And we have dog training columns and guns and loads, of course, and all the stuff you want to be able to see and experience to learn about duck hunting. We have a very cool, dedicated conservation section up front, but from there on, it's legacy. There's so much pageantry surrounding duck hunting and our history. We have something focused on that, something focused on destination adventure, something to just light people's souls, and then something just nuts and bolts about duck hunting or goose hunting in the U.S. Generally revolving around tactics, but also some kick-ass experience that someone has had,
Yep.
Even be it in Canada or in the central heart of the Mississippi flyway or down in the trees where we're living now. So it's all there, and we just try and capture the beating heart of what makes a hunter, our 10%ers, as we call them, it's fired up and lose sleep at night. And
Yeah. So good for the ultra passionate, good for the beginner as well. Yeah.
And I don't know when you're going to air this, hopefully not immediately, but like I just dug up the fact they started making the 870 again and nobody really knew. I know you're most focused on the ammo side, but you haven't heard anybody. People didn't know that they're making the 870 again, and we're featuring them in Guns and Loads in an upcoming issue. And for the heritage side of it, we had a wonderful photographer named Phil Steinke. Doug Steinke, gosh, I'm tired. Too much heat in the sun today. had a wonderful photographer named Doug Steinke write a nostalgic piece about the 870 Magnum pump that he had coveted and once stole from his dad and snuck through and dropped in the ice in a ditch and dove in the ice to retrieve. And, the whole thing hinged on whether his dad would ever find out, and his dad gave him the gun later. It was just that awesome. It was perfect piece for our giant August gear issue, which is the biggest magazine in the hunting industry. It's a giant wildfowl gear issue. It's almost 200 pages. There's nothing like it, but that's the kind of thing we have in there,
Yeah.
And it's something that you probably wouldn't read about anywhere else. That the 870 is back, but here's a cool piece on a soul hunter who.
The story behind it. Yeah, here's the cool gear and here's the story behind it. Yeah, I love that.
As well as your new Nitro Duplex steel, which is awesome.
Oh, yeah. Those loads are crazy good. Yeah, that's awesome. If someone wanted to subscribe, where would they go?
Just look at wildfowlmag.com.
Okay.
You could just search wildfowl on the Googles and you'll find it. And of course on Instagram we have a rather psychotic, passionate following of almost 80,000 followers, and they blow us up no matter what we say, and it's wonderful. the dialogue on there, it's really cool. We're one of the smallest hunting titles in my company. We have 15 hunting and shooting magazines, but our Instagram audience was like on board long before anybody else's, because the nature of the duck hunting community.
Yeah,
we're all
passionate.
We're all a bit nuts. Yeah,
it's okay.
Quackheads.
Is that what they call you guys?
Yeah, among many other things. So.
That's funny. That's great. I mean, I'm glad that it's so accessible. And you wanted to tell me a little bit about the upcoming duck season.
Yeah. I was just saying, when we were up there on the prairie, things looked really grim. The prairie was on fire. I could barely drive through Edmonton, Alberta for all the smoke when the trip was over, and it just started raining. And they'd had a giant snow that saved our bacon in 2013. Same winter drought, but that was caused by El Nino and the prevailing jet stream. No moisture was going where it normally goes. And then they got this massive 3 or 4 or 5 foot snow in places, and it filled all the potholes, but the ground was so dry. They were immediately dropping again, and everyone was, really exasperated. And we got some rain, and it helped out. We had a pretty decent year. This year, we look like we're headed to a disaster again. And all hunters, all waterfowlers hold their breath, looking at the sky, wringing their hands all through late winter and early spring. And when the heavens opened up while I was up there, it flooded. And there were potholes popping up that they hadn't seen before, seen in decades. And this time they were staying because the snow the year prior had saturated the ground enough. And what looked like a terrible production year is turning into, optimistically, the numbers aren't out with U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service officially yet. The surveys aren't in yet. But I won't say that the duck numbers are way up, but the production of the hatch, the conditions were absolutely fantastic across most of the areas. The first time in at least 5 years when I've looked at the water and moisture maps of North America where there weren't red spots at all. So that's really encouraging. But we're guardedly optimistic. But the big thing is, waterfowl need water.
Yeah, that's for sure. That's super exciting. I'm hoping to get out there this year and maybe kill another goose. I've only had one goose. So, yeah. And they're good eats.
Yeah, when I was a kid, South Texas, where you're from, they had a rice farming culture there, tons of snow geese and stuff. They're all gone now, yeah. It stops about near El Campo, west of Houston. It's really picked up. The Grand Prairie, of course, exploded in rice production throughout Arkansas, where you are now. And that sucked in all the geese, and the speckled belly boom followed. But, yeah, it's crazy. That used to be a goose hunting area in South Texas. It's not now, but geese are overall the bright spot in waterfowling. The numbers are climbing most places every year, where ducks tend to fluctuate wildly with conditions. Geese they're much more like built for survival. Yeah,
they stand firm. So
what they call them, rage-filled. I read the thing the other day on Instagram. It said 3 life stages of a goose. It's a cute fuzzy hatchling, awkward teenage gosling. Then it showed the 6-month adult, rage-filled dinosaur monster bird. And I'm like, it's kind of spot on.
Oh, I've definitely been chased by several geese before, so.
I love those videos of golfers running full speed and falling down, being harassed by a goose. It's
Oh
fun.
my gosh. Yeah, here in Colorado, I feel like there's some that just stay all year, like at the parks and stuff. And so they get really territorial. You know, you're out there walking your dog, and they're like, get away from me. You know, they are rage-filled.
Yeah, guys, people just don't know that they don't have giant teeth, and they freak out and run. It's fantastic.
It's so funny. Oh my gosh, yeah. Well, thank you so much for taking your time out of your OSG. I know it's a good time out here, so thanks for taking a break and talking to me.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate you having us. It was crazy in the heat here in Grand Junction, triple digits again today. So I wasn't probably my most coherent, but I did my best.
It's 3 p.m. and we're almost done, but we're getting through it. So I appreciate it.
Thanks so much, Aubrey.
Yeah, it's great to have you. Well, there you have it, guys. Remington is on the rise. Like, comment, subscribe, and be sure to share this podcast with your hunting or shooting buddies. If you have any questions for me or Skip here, you can email us at podcast@remington.com. Thanks for listening.